How are you guys doing? Now today I want to be the greatest person your kids have never heard of. And today I want to talk about the idea of actually pre-gifting part of your children's inheritance to them now or over the next few years, instead of waiting until it all gets handed out to them in the estate. And there's a few reasons why I think that this is actually a really good strategy for a lot of boomers out there. Because a lot of the times I see a lot of retired people that just have too much money. They're sitting on too much money. At the end of the day, there's going to be a really big potential inheritance for their kids at around, 60 years old. And in most cases, their kids are going to be in pretty good shape financially at about 60, and that money could be used a lot better right now in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, when things are quite a bit more difficult. It's hard to get ahead. From a personal perspective, I've told this story before. My parents did fine. My mom's two sisters, their families all did fine. My granddad was a dentist, and he had some money. Obviously, he worked into his late 70s, and he ended up having a decent sized estate that got handed out to my mom and her two sisters. And at that time, none of them needed the money at all. They were all perfectly fine. They didn't need the money, and some of the money actually got handed down to us. And I know for myself, it was that money that enabled me to take the risk to start K4, because I knew that I had a little bit of financial security for like a year or two where I wasn't going to be earning any money. If I didn't get that inheritance from my granddad, I would have never ever been able to do this, because I would have gone out of business because I couldn't get a loan from the bank. So I will thank him forever for that. It's just part of me suggesting that maybe that money could be better used now than in future years, when I should hopefully be in pretty good shape when I'm 60 years old. Another reason I think that this is kind of important is because if you might have noticed, the government has been spending quite a bit of money, and they have no real plan as to how to pay for all of the money that they've been spending. They haven't talked about how they're going to do that because they want to get re-elected. But at some point in time, we're going to have to come up with some sort of plan as to how to pay out, And one of the things that I believe is going to happen is that they're going to end up adding a really significant estate tax or probate tax to all the inheritances that are going to be coming from all the boomers that are going to start passing away with pretty large amounts of wealth over the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. There's going to be huge amounts of potential taxable income coming in. And that will be helpful because it will get handed down, and then it should hopefully stimulate the economy. However, they're going to want their piece of the pie. So my idea is, why not give a little bit of it away now? And that way you won't get hit by that potentially large tax bill at later times. Now, another thing, and this is just sort of my own personal idea, because of COVID, and take it or leave it, but I'm gonna just sort of suggest this is kind of what happened over the last year, and I don't have a problem with it. I'm just gonna say that this is my belief. Now, what we did in my sort of generation, this sort of Gen X, whatever, millennial, Gen Y, I don't even know what I am, we basically slowed down or shut down the economy because we were protecting you guys, our parents. There's no way that I wanted to put my mom at risk. We all did what we had to do because we were mostly protecting the elderly, who were at the biggest risk of, contracting COVID and actually dying if they contracted it. So we really shut down the economy to do that. And there is potentially going to be a pretty significant economic fallout because of that. And my thought is, well, one of the things is that we might actually have to start asking you for this if things get bad enough. So maybe we can preemptively talk about this as an idea. That's just my thought. If things get bad, I know that that's where the majority of the money is, and we might need it, and we definitely don't want to be stealing your hard-earned income from you. We're trying to implement some sort of tax on boomers who worked their asses off and saved up their entire lives. So just something that I've been thinking about a lot over this last year. So the first question I get is, well, how much can we give? How do we know that? I have absolutely no idea. I can't give you a general number, because it's the same thing as you asking me, how much money do I need to retire? But I have absolutely no idea how much money you need to retire, because I don't know, how old you are. I don't know what your income needs are. I don't know what your other sources of income are. I don't know what your investment strategy is. I don't know all of those things. So what I would suggest is, first you run a retirement scenario and say, how much do I need to give myself 100% probability that we are going to be able to live the lifestyle we want for as long as we want? So we've reached that goal, and then there is just a significant excess. It happens all the time. There's people with way more money than they need, and it's just going to be sitting there and growing for time and time and time until it gets passed down to their estate. So that's the part that I'm talking about, and that's going to be different for everybody. So you need to figure that out. And the next question I get asked is, well, what about taxes? How much is it going to cost me in taxes? Well, at the end of the day, you can gift as much cash as you want to anybody without there being any tax consequences to anybody. You can give somebody cash if you want. It doesn't matter. So all you need to do is get that money to cash. And most cases when people have too much money, that means they have quite a bit of money in their RSPs, some money in their TFSAs, and then they've also got like a non-registered investment account, or maybe a bunch of cash or something, where okay, so you just have to pay the taxes to get that money to cash, and then you can gift as much of it as you want. And now we also can talk about the idea, it's not like you have to say, okay, I have this excess of $500,000, so I need to give that to my kids today. You could say, I have an excess of $500,000. I'm going to give it to them over the course of the next 10 years. It's not like you need to just give them a huge lottery win today. Now, depending on your kids, that might actually be a terrible idea, is to give them a whole bunch of money today. They might just absolutely blow it. So that's where I'm going to get into the next part of what we talk about. This really depends on your children, your relationship with them, their relationship with money, because sometimes just gifting people money isn't going to benefit them really at all, because they're just going to end up blowing it and potentially getting into a worse situation later where you need to now gift them more money to get them out of this. And it'll just be a never-ending cycle of bad money management. So one of the things that I want to talk about is, how can we maybe avoid this by putting in some different ideas into place instead of just gifting them cash? Which is obviously the first thing you could do, is just give them money, see how it goes. If you trust them with money, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this option. What are some other options that we could consider? You could say, okay, I want to help them with their mortgage. Maybe every year I'm going to do the double up mortgage payments that they're entitled to, or a lump sum every year This might cut their time of paying down their mortgage in half. It's not really going to make them feel like they have more money, but it will be a very significant help to them in the future. So that's a good option. You could potentially pay off their entire mortgage when it comes up for renewal, if that's something that you would like to consider. Maybe you want to buy them their next vehicle. Vehicles are money pits. They cost so much money. They're super expensive. They're terrible investments. Maybe you just help them out. That cuts off, you know, a $600-700 a month payment every month for 5 to 7 years. That's a good one. You could top up their TFSAs every year or just all at once. If you're going to do that, you actually have to gift them the money and then say this is for you to put into your TFSA. And once it's in their hands, they don't necessarily have to do that. You could do the same thing with their RSPs, where you could say, you know, what's your income? I'm going to put $10,000 into your RSP every year. That's going to save them some tax. Plus, it's going to save for retirement. They're not going to want to take that out, so that might be a good option. You're basically funding their retirement. You could help them with their kids' educations by funding the RESPs for your grandkids. That's always a nice one. You know, if you like your grandkids, obviously, maybe they're like trouble, maybe they're trouble. One, my favorite one, obviously, is take them on a trip. I think those family experiences are the most important. So it's like, you know, take them on a trip. Maybe you have a lot of money. Maybe you buy a cottage for the family or something like that. But if you're going to do that, make sure that you talk to a tax professional, because when it comes to estate time, if you have like multiple generations that are going to get that, it's like the ugliest part of the estate transfer. So cottages are just an absolute nightmare, but might be an awesome family experience to do something like that. And one of the other ones that I thought about was maybe an interesting idea is there's something that I talk about every once in a while. It's called critical illness insurance, where basically you're funding insurance, and if you get sick, then it's going to pay out a lump sum to you, and that will help you, you know, fund that time that you have to take off work and hopefully get better. One of the options with critical illness is that you can pay more into the policy every month or year, and if you never make a claim, then at, say, age 65, you'll get every single dollar back that you put into the policy. So just for a rough example, let's say you've got a 40-year-old son. You put $150 a month into a policy that would pay out $100,000 if, you know, they got sick, got diagnosed with a critical illness. That gets paid until they're 65 years old. If he never gets sick, then he's going to get a check at 65 years old for about $40,000. So it's a good way of protecting their health, plus putting some money into a savings account for them. So that was just sort of an interesting idea I thought about. If you have any other ideas that I haven't thought about, or maybe you've done, or you want to ask questions about, I'd love to hear about them. I'd love to hear about any ideas that you might have about gifting some money to your children. You could always buy shares in a company that you'd like or something like that, but give them to them like that. I don't know. Just some ideas, some food for thought, something that you might want to consider as you're looking at your retirement and saying, you know, maybe we do have a little bit too much for what we need, and let's see if we can help out our children and see if we can make their lives a little bit easier, if that's something that you want to do. I know it's your money, so do whatever the heck you want with it, but I know that that's a conversation I've been having a lot lately. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We'd love to hear from you in the comments, and we'll see you very soon. Thanks.